Matt and I are still enjoying the American Series 5 or Season 5, with Season 6 along the way next year. That will be the end of it all. And when we pick up this 5th season, Philip and Elizabeth, our illustrious Russian spies living in the States, are with a new family, which threw me initially. They have
Tuan.
They have Tuan. Yeah, they haven't got 2 Koreans, they've only got Tuan.
But, I didn't think we'd get this racist this quickly.
I know, it's nice to get it out of the way, isn't it? So they've got a sort of a young teenage Korean boy, Tuan, helping them out and living with them. Well, not living with them, living as
he
part
lives
of
in a house on his own, and they pop in from time to time to pretend to be his pilot and stewardess, mother and father.
That's how kind of like I would wish my life was. I don't mind seeing my parents, but I wish I lived in a house on my own.
And they'd occasionally come by with McDonald's.
Yeah, that's all I need. Where else are we? So we've got that going on, and he has befriended a Russian kid that started at school, and Philip and Elizabeth want to get to know their parents very well. And unusually for the Americans, we've not seen this before, the father of the kid at school is really anti-Russia, and gets under Philip and Elizabeth's skin because they have to obviously play the part of these...
Antoine's skin as well, he's quite
he's really,
by it.
Yeah.
The big sort of overarching story is about the sort of food industry, isn't it, on both sides? Because the father of this family has been... what's the word? He's fled Russia, and he's been taken on by the food industry. Initially, they think that the Americans are trying to sabotage the Russian grain by unleashing a strain of bugs. But as the series goes on, and Elizabeth and Philip both go undercover in Topeka, Kansas, oddly, they discover that actually they're trying to create a sort of sustainable grain for the third world. And they're using people from all around the world and these bugs to sort of maintain it and see if it holds up to the bugs rather than using the bugs to sabotage it.
The people that they've gone undercover to have relationships with to get closer to the news are 2 people that neither one of them can stand. And that's never happened before either.
Well, like initially you think maybe Elizabeth likes the guy, the beardy guy.
Yeah.
But she's saying like he's a funny guy, he's charming, but he's laughing and he's destroying the crops, and then she finds out. But there's something in, was it Ep 6 where they see him sort of with another woman?
Yes.
And that sort of changes your opinion about him a bit. The woman Philip's with is just really dull. And I loved that scene at the beginning when they were talking about Lotus, and it's like, she's such a great actor. I don't know the actress's name, but her just delivery of all these lines, like sort of just, what is it? Just sort of like a droll delivery.
She's sort of just so dull.
Yeah, I can't do justice to the voice.
She says things like, if you moved in with me, this would end, and you're very heavy. And then she goes, do you want to have sex? And he goes, yeah. Because the other big relationship that he had with Martha was much more intense. And I think, although
Martha
he
was
love
a lot
her,
more likeable, wasn't it? And
yeah.
He cared about her.
He cared about her. He didn't want to see her hurt. And of course, spoiler, he eventually revealed his true self to Martha because...
And we got a little Martha cameo in
I didn't know if you'd spot that, but I thought that was a work of genius. It was a bit like a Where's Wally. I love that.
The reason for that cameo was the fact that we've got a sort of separate storyline in Russia this time with Oleg, who's gone back from America to Russia to work for the KGB, and that's also to do with food industry. Like there's an undercover corrupt person who's sort of dishing out the best food to certain supermarkets, and they're trying to see how far up this chain goes. And meanwhile, Oleg thinks he's being blackmailed by the FBI. Also, you've got Paige, who's sort of even more now sort of entrenched into the spyness of everything, and
she's sort of fascinated by it, isn't she?
Yeah. How do you pretend to be another person? Paige, for the uninitiated, is the daughter of Philip and Elizabeth, who found out, was it the end of season 3? That the parents were spies, and sort of is getting, they're letting her in more on their work now. They're telling her about all the grain stuff and things like that. She's started a relationship with Matthew Beeman from across the road, whose dad is an FBI agent. There was the feeling that she was with him to get information. Philip was worried about that. they've since split up because he's a bit boring. Because I was worried Henry, their son, would be a bit Chris Brody, but he's good at maths.
One of my favourite things about the Americans is the scenes between him and Stan, because I think they're just so
You want
sweet
my
and
theory
genuine.
that the last season will be Paige becomes a spy and Henry becomes a FBI agent under Stan's wing, and they sort of...
That's Spy Kids. Spy Kids 4.
No, but Spy Kids, they were both on the right side, on each side, I mean. So, like, Henry's an FBI agent, Paige is a Russian spy.
Maybe.
At conflict. I know that wouldn't happen. Like, that would be the sort of sequel.
But I don't know, because when I started The Americans, way back about 3.5 years ago, if you can remember.
Under my
that
recommendation, I'd like to say.
Under your recommendation, and a lot of other people I respect. Maybe
But me,
yours.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I had assumed, and I think it started out this way, I had assumed, look, Russian spies living in America, FBI agent moves in next door, when's he going to catch him, is he going to catch him, blah, blah, blah. And it feels like it's just so much denser now, so deep. I don't even know if I want that in the end. I don't
We also
know
haven't mentioned Stan's relationship with a woman who I suspected, I think, before Philip, that she might
he's a bit too perfect, isn't she?
Yeah, she might be working for them, might be working for the Russians, even though Frank Langella's Gabriel sort of poo-pooed it on.
And while we're on Philip as well, we've got his son turning up very briefly,
Mishka.
being shooed away by Frank Langella's character Gabriel. And of course, talking to Gabriel, he met Paige for the first time as well, which was really understated.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot of it,
momentous as well.
It's about the relationship between fathers and sons, because Philip's learning about his father. He's getting these flashbacks to his childhood.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I like this season, this 5th season. It would be so easy for them to just move the plot along, but I love that they're really thinking about how their actions have affected them and worrying about where they've come from as well, which...
I mean, I think, to an extent, he's sort of more sympathetic to the dad from that family, who's sort of defected from Russia. But
he's come to America to better himself.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. And the other thing, again, another one, is that the mum now has got a job at the same agency, sort of teaching Russian to certain CIA agents that they're hoping to send undercover to Russia, so that if they get in with her, the KGB can find out who the undercover agents are in Russia.
So we're on Ep 7 of 13, and then we know there will be 10 more. What do you think the end game should be?
Well, I've told you.
Well, if that doesn't pan out...
I don't know. I really don't know.
Do you want Stan to catch them? Is it even about that anymore?
That's the beauty of it, though. I don't know what the end game is. I mean, there has to be a good payoff after like 6 seasons. I mean, the style of this is brilliant as well, and the use of music again.
I was just going to say the use of music.
In like the first couple of seasons, it was a lot more overt. They used a lot more. I mean, that first episode alone, you remember they used In the Air Tonight. They used Tusk. And they've still got Dylan Baker's infected hand or something, haven't they?
Now let's go back to that, because you weren't keen on episode 1, and you weren't alone. A lot of people said too much digging. I found,
Yeah, I do actually like the way the Americans has these scenes. I mean, we just talked about the music, but they do have scenes where it's just silence and just. Here's a technical term for you, Luke. Diegetic sounds, where it is.
How have you been hiding that bad boy all these years?
It's my film studies training. What can I say?
In case you missed Matt's technical term,
diegetic sounds.
That was Matt's technical term.
That means that it's sound that you can only hear in the actual scene. No external music. That would be non-diegetic sound where they play.
And what makes it because Gary would probably know, being diabetic himself. So what?
They have that in this scene where it's just them digging and they're sort of sighing and going for water and stuff, because they're digging up the body of Dylan Baker's sort of was he like a mad scientist type?
He was literally a mad scientist, yeah.
And it ends with Hans getting infected and basically just killed by Elizabeth and slung in the grave with Dylan Baker.
It's a show that's very aware of where it's going, I think, and it's
engaging, and it's got characters you can sympathise with, and it's it's just, I mean, I started watching. I've watched all 7 within the last probably 4 or 5 days. Compared to something else on FX, which is Feud, which I sort of have stuck with just out of habit, I think. And the last episode of Feud aired on Sunday night in the States, and it was just a bit all over the place. Really, they don't really know how to end it. And compared to that, I mean, the Americans is just great. I mean, the performances from all of them. The wig department needs special mention for that.
Best wigs on telly. You know, I can't praise it enough. It is one of my favourite shows of all time, and if it ends as if it ends as well as I hope it's going to end, then it will have a special place in my heart, really, my TV obsessed heart, because you speak a lot on Line of Duty about the intricacies of it,
yeah.
And
well, that's what I mean from the digging may have gone on too long, but the scene with the midges, obviously because they're spies, there's a lot of scenes where they're just trailing people, and they just let you follow those scenes, don't they?
And I love I still think Paige is a wonderful character, because I love the juxtaposition, even though it's harder for me to say than I imagine. Yeah, that. I love that. Between Paige and particularly her mum, because how did these people create such a sort of a girl with such a wonderful outlook on the world and inquisitiveness about the world? You can find the first 3 seasons on Amazon Prime, and season 4, which is the one before the one we're talking about, so spoilers ahoy, that is on Amazon Prime on the 1st of May.
That ITV sort of just dropped this completely, isn't it?
I mean, and yet they're sticking by Lethal Weapon.
They showed the first 2 seasons on normal ITV, and then the 3rd season on ITV Encore, and then they just dropped it all together.
Yeah, I don't know whether they even bought... No, they did show 4 as well on
did
ITV
they?
Encore.
Oh, right, okay.
But I don't think they've bought 5 and 6.
Well, that's a shame.
So, why? But yeah, first 4 will eventually be on Amazon Prime.